Hello everyone, welcome back to the Saint Cyril channel. Today's video is for both non-believers and Christians, mainly because it'll be appealing and kind of comforting for the Christian to hear. Also because it may be enlightening for some of the non-believers that may see this. So often we see true practicing Christians, they're always condemned for what they believe in, what they practice by the common people. Today we're going to go and see why that is the case, because it's not good. And not only that, in the Bible there's many instances that state Christians are going to be condemned and sort of disliked by the common people. For instance, there's James chapter 4 verse 4. I'll read that out to you. It's not long. Don't you know that friendship with the world means enmity against God? Therefore, anyone who chooses to be a friend of the world becomes an enemy of God. If we invert this, that simply means that anyone who is a friend of God is an enemy of the world. It's because a devoted Christian who starts practicing righteousness will always end up having something or being something that the average person wants to see in themselves. To put it simply, the average person becomes jealous or envious of the righteous person. The average person is also upset in their hearts because they see you doing this by the means of something they dislike, either God or Christianity or religion as a whole. And the average person already resents the idea of Christianity and God from childhood, from either media or people representing it in a bad way, but that's still a big thing that's in that person, that resentment. Now, I'm going to give you an example, or an analogy, so to speak, of, let's say, an older lady who rejects the idea of God and Christianity and is for the most part atheistic, doesn't believe in anything. She's had multiple bad experiences with either men or bad relationships or anything that could be a byproduct of overall her bad behavior. And now this analogy doesn't only apply to women, don't get me wrong, it'll apply to both men and women. But anyways, then this lady sees a devoted Christian who knows how they should act, what they should do, they know right from wrong, and they're happy with everything they do in their lives. And you could easily see it. And not only that, this Christian will likely never go through any of the tragedies that this older lady has been through because of wisdom, because of teachings that he or she abides by. The Christian will likely never have the trauma or tragedies happen to them because the teachings from religion, from the idea of God, so to speak, for the atheists to understand, the non-believers to understand. And now, you may be thinking that this older lady may see this as the perfect example and be happy for the Christian. But there's two really big things that this older lady needs to deconstruct within themselves in order to be that wise and be happy for the wisdom that the Christian is portraying. Those two things are to have the humility to accept that you play the biggest part in what you become in life. Overall, it's the accountability, the humility to basically accept that it's wrong and painful to be with multiple men or relationships. And obviously, because if you're going through a lot of relationships, you're getting your heart broken so many times over. That's going to be painful, no doubt. And after doing all this, there's no way she would have the humility, again, to accept that she should be more serious with who she gives herself to. And let's say the Christian sense, you have to be very serious and very certain on who it is that you decide to give yourself to. Overall, you need to have that certainty on who you're going to be giving yourself to. Otherwise, you're just going to go through pain. Now, the other big thing that this lady would have to deconstruct within herself is the resentment that she already has for God and Christianity from childhood, whether it be from media or bad experiences with the church or, whatever it may be that gave them this horrible impression on the religion. And I'd say those two reasons, especially the part from childhood, will definitely play a big part on how these people are going to be viewing Christians in everyday life. There's going to be jealousy, there's going to be envy. But now that's just one of the big reasons, I'll say. But I'm also going to touch on another thing that happens to non-believers and is also playing a big part in the way they kind of function and see the world. It comes from a quote from G.K. Chesterton, who was an author and a theologian. He says, "Once a man ceases to believe in God, they start to believe in anything." Now think about that. A man that ceases to believe in God starts to believe in anything. Once you really ponder on that and think of exactly what that means, you'll understand that's very dangerous, to be almost gullible in the sense, to believe in anything that's appealing to you. Another way of seeing this is that any person who rejects God or has no backbone as to who they are, then they start to see themselves as their own God, and they rely solely on what they themselves see the world as by their own judgment. Of course, the perfect example of this would be anyone that's in kind of like the New Age spirituality kind of stuff, because their beliefs have almost no merit and are usually only what sounds appealing to their own judgment. And in most cases for these people, there's no set rule book or teachings for these people to follow. It's always what sounds nice or what's kind of just appealing in the moment. Now, how appealing is it that everything you believe has nothing you don't like? Is that reality? There's always going to be things you don't like. There's always going to be a hard truth or a hard pill that you need to swallow on the way reality works. But if everything you see and everything you base your own belief system off of is, one, from your own judgment, and two, it always sounds nice and kind of soft and happy, so to speak. For example, people that believe in rocks, it's, for the most part, not true. I'm sorry that's offensive, but it's what it is. Because there's nothing to say that this colorful rock increases energies and makes you happy. And if there is, I would love to see the studies. But that being the second sort of big reason as to why a non-believer won't usually like a Christian. Now, these are the main reasons, at least in my own view, as to why common people, or the average person that isn't religious, usually has a bad view on Christians. Even though the beliefs that a Christian has are what society as we know it are based off of. And the Christians usually live the happiest of lives compared to everyone else, at least the devoted ones anyway. And they end up being the best for society because they're the ones that are always the most giving, and because of how hard they work for others. I know this maybe sounded like a harsh video, but the reality is people aren't wise, and people are in love with their own sin, their own hell. They're addicted to their own sinful ways. Everyone has their vice, everyone has their crutch to get through life, whether it's drinking, smoking, vaping, or gambling. It's all a means to cope with the pain that they've gone through, or it's just addiction. But there's always stuff you can learn, especially from the ones you don't like. I've always used to say, never pick a side. The truth is always found in the middle of an argument. You pick a side, you're being ignorant to the other. You want to get both sides of a story. So, that being said, if you're going around and you see something you don't like, investigate. Why don't you like it? Why does it piss you off? Because usually, if there's no reason behind it, then it's just emotional. You're just being emotional, which is never usually good. You always want to understand why you do things, why things happen. So if you're able to deconstruct things that you see and you don't like, then you definitely should. There's going to be wisdom in there, and you're going to be learning a new view on the world that you may have missed before otherwise. I think that's the end for this video. Definitely let me know your thoughts. I usually go about these videos from things I see in life, as well as from interviews and teachings that just kind of like click in my head, like from scripture, let's say. I always have things that click in my head. It's like, okay, that makes complete sense, and I see that in the world. I'm going to talk about it. So, yeah, definitely let me know your thoughts. If you disagree, perhaps we could find out why. Maybe I can learn, maybe you can learn. So, that's going to be the end for this video. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.